Call the meeting to order. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Welcome to the April 3, 2023 meeting of the Westport Select Board. Just a couple of announcements this morning. Remember that the town election is on Tuesday, April 11th. That's a week from tomorrow. Remember, this is a local election, so the polls don't open until 10. But so the polls are open from 10 to 8. April 11, there's several contested races. There's a couple of good YouTube videos with interviews of the candidates and things like that. So just remind everyone to go out and vote on April 11. And one of the people we will not be voting for on April 11 is Mr. Brian Balcourt. So this is your last select board meeting. So Brian has served for 9 years on the select board and a number of different committees. And we want to thank you for the work you've done for Westport. We're gonna miss you.
And keep them on some
We're gonna keep you on some committees because you've been volunteering for a bunch of different committees. So do you want to?
Energy, long-term building committee, and the capital improvements planning committee. So I'm going to be staying on, and then I'll be around if people need help with other things. I may consider also be joining the recreation committee. And my band will be playing at the concert series on July 13th, the Thursday night. So if you guys want to see me there, you can see that. Other than that,
So we'll still see you. We just want to see you here.
We'll find you. See me here. We're not going anywhere. I'm not moving away. I'm just, I've, grandchildren now and things that I want to spend a little more time doing and people being around. So, I just couldn't put the focus in on this that I needed to, that I felt that it deserved. And so it was a very difficult decision, but and I will miss all of you and the work we've done. But I feel like we've done a really great job putting the town on a proper footing and straightening out a lot of the issues that we had with town services and budgets and whatnot. And forever looking for ways to supplement our budgets and figure these things out, but I think we've done a really great job, and I think even some of the people who attended some of our meetings who were not from this town were expressed to me afterwards how good this board works together, and how we're very cooperative, even though we come at things from different ends of the spectrum and we maybe argue different points. We're always courteous and civil in our actions with each other, and we go by a majority vote, and that's it. And I've really been impressed by that, and this has been my first 3 years on the board was very contentious, and these last 6 years have been much better and much easier to do. Because you're not constantly fighting someone that's just trying to throw a wrench in the works. So I commend you all. It's only because you're here that I feel like at this point I can actually step away. So thank you very much. And thank you to the citizens of this town for entrusting me, with these decisions and with this leadership, because without you I wouldn't be here either. So thank you so much. And, don't worry, I'm not going away. Continue to see me. Anybody
else have any remarks about that? You still have to work. You still have to finish the meeting. So. I just also, while you're marking your calendars, April 11 is the town election. May 2nd is the town meeting. We're going to talk a lot about the warrants coming up. Any other acknowledgments or recognitions? Okay. The first item we have on the agenda is a request from the cemetery department to hire Ian Johnson as a seasonal laborer. Jim?
Yeah, Ronald Port interviewed Mr. Johnson. He was very, very pleased with the interview. He's recommending that he be hired as a seasonal laborer starting April 10th.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. That's unanimous. Do we know if anyone from the Watershed Alliance is coming tonight?
I do not.
Okay, so we can just handle these. I don't see anyone there. So the next we have a request for the Westport River Watershed Alliance for,
Yes, yes.
we said it's like Rumpelstiltskin. You say it and there you appear. So do you want to come up and talk to us?
Sure. Sorry, I'm a little late. Just came from another meeting.
We're just very efficient is all. We got to you quickly.
Thank you. Okay, so we have, let's see, 4 activities
Yeah.
planned, and also I have just put in another plug for Clean Our Westport, which is happening on the 15th, and we're the kind of the fiscal agent for that organization, so we want you all to come out and help. Electronics recycling, for the first time, the company agreed to do it on a Saturday, which is pretty big because they don't work on Saturdays. We've been working with them for 8 years. This is the first time they said they'd come on a Saturday. So it's Saturday, April 29th. We always do it behind here, and we'll need extra volunteers, I think, because it's going to be well attended. And we added an extra hour, and they're bringing an extra truck. So
Nice.
that's all good.
April 29, 9 to noon. Does
Yeah.
anyone on the board object if we just handle all of these as one group of things? All right, we're going to handle them all.
Okay.
Thanks.
The next one is the annual spring beach cleanup at Cherry and Webb, Saturday, May 13th from 10 to 12. And that's, you've all been there. It is what it is.
When we did get a recommendation from the beach committee on that one to recommend approval.
Okay, and the dune hike is part of our Experience the Wonders of the Watershed. We do this, we actually just finished the 5th grade dune day on Friday with 120 kids in 2 groups. And this is our opportunity to have people come out, learn about the ecology of that environment, and learn to really respect and take care of it. So we've been doing that for a number of years. And the last one is River Day, which we're doing later in the season because it's in coordination with the Land Trust and the residency of the Wampanoags burning a canoe, a Mishoon, which they will do at the end of May, and then it will be transported up to the head landing, and it will be a big feature of River Day, as will also their performers, presenters, dancers, musicians will all be there. So we're really, really excited about this. It's been a lot of coordination, but I think it's going to be a wonderful experience for us, for the town, for the families. It's going to be incredible. So those are the things we've got on tap. And I see a typo there. River Day is from 10 to 2. It's not 10 to noon. That was just my mistake.
And then for the River Day, we haven't gotten approval from the Landing Commission yet, right?
No, they did. We went to them
Okay.
already, yeah.
All right, so the Landing
Yeah.
Commission approved, and then do we have police recommendations for that one?
We will have to get police detail. I sent the notice out to the chief, and I think we'll actually have to have, we also arranged for the Council on Aging vehicle to bring people down from the parking area at the high school, and I think we'll have to have 2 police details this year, not 1. And we're having 2 porta-johns, not 1.
Yeah, bigger.
Yeah. Well, it's just, it's a really big collaboration, and I think it's going to be very exciting. The other thing is that the Mishoon will be on display for the rest of the summer up there at the head behind the building, and people can come and see it, and we'll do an informational sign so people can learn about that tradition and that process.
I move that we approve all of them.
Second, subject to the police for the event, right?
Yep.
So number of events, April 15 is the Clean Our Westport. That's not on the vote, we already voted to approve that one. April 29 for the Recycling Day, May 13 for the Beach Cleanup Day, June 17 for Dune Hike, and June 24 for River Day. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. That's unanimous, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else going on with the Watershed Alliance you want to talk about?
No, I just want to show you our
Nice, the Wampanoag.
yeah, and actually,
experience.
the thing that's missing is we also have the Land Trust logo on there. So, yeah, we're excited. I think it's going to be a really great experience.
You know how to spell Mishoon?
Mishoon.
It is 2 N's, okay, thanks.
2 O's.
2 O's, I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks
thanks.
for what you're doing.
Oh, yeah. Thank you all.
Action B, authorize primary and alternate representatives to execute the contract for the community electricity aggregation. Do you want to tell us about this one, Jim?
Yeah, so this is the program that we have now with Constellation, where residents in Westport can sign up for reduced rates as part of the overall contract with a number of other communities. This is going out for bid again. I believe it's April 25th would be bid day, and they need somebody available that day to sign, so we're just looking for authorization from the Board of Selectmen to allow either myself and the town accountant, or myself and one of the board members to sign on that day. So they'll be going out to bid again, so this will take effect next, the current contract expires December 2023, so this will be going forward.
So I'll move we make Jim the primary and Nicole the alternate.
Second.
I want to say, we talked about this program on the last Climate Advisory Committee. So check your electric bill. It should say, if you're participating in the program, it should say Constellation, and that means some of your energy is green energy, and it costs you less in the end. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. That's unanimous. We have a request from Chris Leonard. Want to come? We have a request from Chris Leonard, Director of Marine Services, to approve the following 3-year aquaculture license: Lees Wharf Site 1, Carrie and Fennelly; Lees Wharf Site 2, John Fennelly; East Branch Site 1, Carrie and Fennelly; East Branch Site 2, Carrie and Fennelly; and East Branch Site 3, John Fennelly.
Kristen.
That's Kristen.
Was the
Kristen.
Oh, Kristen Fennelly, sorry.
Volunteers.
Did not mean to exclude
Carrie and
Kristen.
John, Carrie and Kristen.
That's okay.
You want to tell us what this is all about, Chris?
Alrighty, good evening. My name is Christopher Leonard, Director of Marine Services. This is Carrie and Fennelly, and Rick Smith from the Shellfish Advisory Committee. We're here tonight to request aquaculture license renewals for the Fennellys. 2 of the sites are upweller sites. They were 1 year because they were preliminary, so we do it for 1 year. And then if everything goes smoothly, we'll then renew them for 3 years. So I'm here to say that everything went smoothly for those, and so we're hoping to get a 3-year renewal for those. And these other sites are up in the Let, in the Horseneck Channel. And we're doing all of these together so they can all cycle at the same time, because it's like been catching fireflies. Like one will go and whatever, so if we can get them all in the same cycle, it's something that we hope to do with the other sites too, just so there's a couple of events to then do this instead of catching fireflies here. So that's what we're here for the first item.
So I'll recommend we approve them all.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you're here to amend the shellfish and scallop, notice I said that correctly this time.
Yes.
Regulations booklet, section 2, article 1, relating to the maximum quantity of scallops. You want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, sure. We in our rule and regulation book, we would only allow 2 licenses, or 1 license and 1 permit, or 2 permits per boat for scallop season. And maybe Rick can talk a little bit about what we talked about in the Shellfish Advisory Committee as for safety.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Chris. My name is Rick Smith. I live at 1962 Main Road. In the committee, as the director said, in the commission, we talked about the safety issue of having more than 2 licenses on a boat. And as you all know, these are small boats in the river. Out there all winter long. If you bring on 3 bushels, which is allowed per license, that's the weight of another person. So if you have 2 boats, you have 3 people, come to the weight of 3 people. So if you have 3 or 4, whatever number of licenses in the boat, let's just say 3, you can legally take 9 bushels on board. That presents a safety issue for the people in the boat and the people that have to go rescue them when they fall out of the boat or when they have problems. It's a weight issue, it's a freeboard issue, but the bottom line is if the change is allowed, it would make it consistent with scalloping as well as all shellfishing 2 licenses per boat, as the director said. And that would certainly make it a lot safer for the fishers that are out there, people that have to come and get us in the middle of the winter. A lot of people will say that it's the river and it's this and that, but it's a challenge out there. Some good wind and a running tide. In the middle of the winter can be tough. So when we had that discussion, it was unanimous that we support going to 2 licenses per boat, or 2 permits per boat, or 1 on 1.
Thank you. And Chris, are you also recommending that?
I'm in agreement with this. We'll just take a bushel of quahogs, like we get in our relay transplant program, is 80 pounds. So then you have 80 pounds times 3, times 6, times 9. That would be 3 commercial permits. And a lot of these boats are less than 20 feet. So then when you have 2-3 people plus 9 bushels at 80 pounds apiece, it's just a recipe for disaster. So I'm on board with this completely.
Anybody have any questions?
I would move that we amend the regulations to allow for just 2 licenses per boat.
Second. No, that's just a regulation, it's not a bylaw, correct?
This isn't, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Just the regulation.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Chris, is there anything else you want to give us an update on?
Sure,
Going on
I can
there?
give you a brief highlights reel here. In the shellfish department, I'd like to just say that we put in place a memorial for Gary Sherman, who was a longtime shellfish warden for this town and did a lot of good things. The memorial is located in front of the harbor master office, directly in between the 2 windows facing the street. There is a stone that has Westport with the seal, and then underneath it, it has his name, Gary E. Sherman, on one side, 1977, on the other side, 2015, and that was his tour of duty for the shellfish department. I've got a few more decades, I think, to catch up with that, because I believe his total service was 38 years. So I'm about 8 in full-time, so I've got a long way to go. I've got a long way to go on this one.
There's something to shoot for.
I got, yeah.
Do the best you can.
You know what, I'll
Have
try.
goals.
I'll try. Let you know that the Manton Foundation has gone through again this year for $100,000 to buy shellfish for the Westport River, so that's always a good thing. Right now, we're working on the relay contracts, going out to combis, and hopefully we can get that going as soon as possible, just because it's starting to get a little bit warmer, and if we're going to plant 5,000 bushels this year, it's sooner begun, sooner done on that whole thing. I can also say that oystering, the oystering area up and around Hicks Bridge has been a very fruitful year. Oystering season is going to end in that location at the end of this month at sunset. And so we have a lot of people that have really gone up there and had a good go of it and making a great living at it. And it's good for the oysters to get mixed up, moved around, chipped around. If they just sit there and grow, they turn into, rabbit ears? And what do they call them? I don't know.
Fingers.
Finger, yeah, yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, coconuts. So the oystering has been really good up there. So I have that to report. We're doing our first shell stock meeting tomorrow night. And that has been a really good time for everybody, and it's been really good for the Shellfish Gift Fund. We're not certain when the Manton Foundation grants will stop, but the Manton Foundation, just as a refresher, it's 5 years, $100,000 a year for a total of $500,000. That is for buying purely shellfish. It's not for wages, it's not for equipment, gas and oil, this kind of stuff. So it's $100,000 worth of shellfish invoices that need to be presented to the Manton Foundation in my final report. I'd like to say that with the shell stock that we've, kind of community fundraiser, we have a shellfish gift fund that has $231,000 in it. So we can hopefully keep moving this whole thing forward. A lot of people that I'd like to thank also, in lieu of flowers, people are asking requests to put donations to the Shellfish Gift Fund, which is really great. Moving into the Harbor Master Department, we're getting ready, lifting the blocks in the river for channel markers, rock markers, slow and awake buoys. We usually put the channel markers in at the end of this month, like the last week of this month. There's a lot of brown slime that's in the river and a lot of other things that like to spawn and spat right now. If we put the channel markers in too soon, they get too heavy and it's hard on all of the equipment. Waterway user stickers and printing forms that run the Enterprise Fund, the Harbor Enterprise Fund. The printing is going to be done tomorrow. The stickers are going to be out so we can start doing business for this year. The CVA, which is the Clean Vessel Act, we get money to pump boats out as a free pump out service. That contract is signed and moving forward. And we'll end it with, we've been talking to Congressman Keating, Congressman Keating's assistant, to move dredging forward in the Westport River. There was talk of using the Army Corps' boat, the Currituck, which is a kind of a scow boat that would then come in and then dump. So plans were not to pump the debris on the beach like last time, that it would be then moved off-site into deep water and deposited. If everything goes well, and knock on wood somewhere, it could be as soon as this fall, but I'm not making any promises on that, so we're just trying to move that whole thing forward, because it's going to be a multi-million-dollar operation. So that's where we're at right now.
Thank you. Anybody have anything for Paul?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, have a good day.
Have a good day.
Good to see you.
So the next item we have
Oh, wait,
is
one thing. Karen, when are you opening?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, when-
Memorial Day. Here we go.
Memorial Day.
Okay.
All right,
See you there.
That was my own question.
Good night, thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
So next item we have is a review and update on the town warrant articles. So I saw we have draft 12 in our packet. So I'm going to let Jim highlight one, but I just noticed Article 1 doesn't have an amount. So Article 1 is the prior fiscal year. Do we not have anything there?
Right now, we don't have any bills, so we may just pass over, hopefully pass over that article.
Okay. And then just going down, I think the big one we'd want to talk about is Article 6, which is the contingent on the override budget. So let's skip over Article 6 for a moment. Are there changes on any of the other ones that you wanted to call out?
So in Article 2, we had personnel services, $25,000 for the police to cover the SRO officer at the elementary school. That number may need to get increased. We just had the arbitration case for the police department, and they're working on the retroactive pay right now, so I'm hoping to get that final number.
Okay, but that's, so in Article 2, you added in paying for the school resource officer for the remainder of this fiscal year?
That's correct.
Okay.
A couple of other changes, Articles 35 and 36, those were appropriating or reappropriating funds left over from bonding. One was for the middle school, the old middle school, and the other was for the mold remediation at the old police station. So those have now been put into Article 3, so we'll be able to delete those two. Article 3 is a number of old articles here where we're transferring the money from the old articles into the stabilization, capital stabilization fund.
So those are, sorry, I missed that. So those are now in Article 3?
They'll be in Article 3, yes.
Okay.
And then the last change that we had was Article,
Well, Article 26, I think you added. Article 26 is we talked about last time.
Yep.
So for the long-term building committee, so Article 26 now it talks about the using funds not to exceed $200,000 to advance the what to do with the old high school building. Do we have a funding source for that? It's free cash, right?
free cash.
Okay. All right.
And then Article 28 was requested by the Finance Committee to change the dates on the town bylaws as to when the warrants and financial reports had to be to the Finance Committee. The chair of the Finance Committee asked if we could push that back and not put that on the warrant this year. I also, Steve Forbes, the town moderator, had also questioned it going on kind of late, so I'd like to remove Article 28 from the warrant as
So
well.
do we want to just remove it completely?
Yes,
Okay. So then that will renumber the subsequent article.
that's correct.
Anybody have any questions on any of those? I know he's going kind of fast. Okay.
And then just on Article 5, there was a correction for the free cash amount, should be 700,252 instead of 750,252. The total is correct.
Okay, so anybody have anything they want to talk about for any of the articles that are not the contingent on the override article? Everybody all set with all those? Okay. So Article 6. So Article 6 is the raise and appropriate subject to, is the contingent appropriations. So when we had discussed this the last week, or last meeting, we had agreed on appropriating $1 million contingent on an override. And we had the list of things that we put in there: information technology, another police officer, another fire department, another person in the building department, another person in the highway department, and then some additional appropriations for the Council on Aging. And we had a placeholder, so that was about $350,000. And then we had a placeholder, might have been $345,000. Sorry,
340.
I can't do math. So there's we had on the town side $345,000 that we were requesting contingent on an override, and then we were suggesting $250,000 into the stabilization contingent on an override. And we had a number from the Westport Community Schools of $405,000 contingent on an override. Dick and Jim and I met earlier with representatives from the school committee and school department to talk about their request. So this is this material that we have on our desk here. So Dick or Jim, do one of you want to try to go through it, or you want me to try to go through it?
Well, I'd ask Jim because he's produced some numbers for us, and he seems to be good at this.
You want me to try
Not that you want.
first, Jim, or you want to?
So I can give it a shot.
Okay.
So we're looking at the school department budget going forward. They had some original appropriations that we've come very close to meeting, I think, in the town budget in Article number 5, the operating budget. In the override budget, they were looking for a total number of $1.1 million, approximately $1.1 million. They had listed a number of positions that they'd like to fund: a grant writer, a world language teacher for the Westport High School, student services director. They had some other classroom assistants for special education and behavioral specialists. They were looking for a transportation van. That would include the purchase, the insurance, a driver, and a monitor. Special needs facilitator, and a Z-Space teacher and software licensee teacher. That is, they had received a grant for $410,000 last year that allowed them to buy a number of laptops and computers, and they are looking for a specialty teacher to work with those students with those laptops. This was a little bit more than I had originally recommended or suggested as an option in the override amount. So we're still, I think, in that range in between $3 million and $5 million for the override. The school department is looking in the range of about $1 million, $1.1 million. In the town, we're still around the $345,000 to maybe $500,000 on the high side, at least for the first year for the override number.
So I just want to, I know we talked a lot about this, just so everybody catch up. So this table that we have here that they requested, it says 1.6 million, but we clarified that of that 856 at the top, some of that we already had in their appropriation. So really the request that they have for their override amount is 1.1 million to put in that placeholder. Jim did do some work to look at so what the town side, the 345, is basically just bare minimum that we need to keep running these departments, right? We didn't do kind of the wish list of what we probably need in the future. It was really targeted police, fire, highway, building inspector, council on aging. But if we were going to increase the amount, by more than the 345, Jim's got some ideas for some ways that we could do that. So I don't think that any of these, my opinion is that I don't think any of these proposals are solid enough to put them in the warrant yet. I think we need to talk about them as a board. But I know there's been some concern about whether, if you have a school department appropriation of 1.1 million, but the town appropriation is only 345, is that an imbalance that's going to cause some problems? Should we suggest something less than the 1.1 million? Should we increase the town side? This is kind of the discussions we were having earlier today. And then, Jim, do you want to explain this one? This?
Yes, I will do my best. So on the color sheet here, there's two different options. And this we just kind of modified today to make some changes to kind of address some of the school department's needs. And there's a $5 million override option and a $3 million override option. I will talk about the $3 million first. I think in order to make it work, you would need a $3 million increase in the levy right away, $3 million up front. There's a possibility of appropriating, say, $1 million or approximately $1 million to the school department the first year, and $345,000 to $400,000 to the town in the first year. That would allow you to put about $1,600 into stabilization because you
1.6
would
million.
You would need that in the following years. There's no way to separate this out for 3 years in the levy if we're going with a $3 million override. You would need a greater override, closer to $5 million to split it up. And then that would allow you to split up an additional increase in revenue for the next 3 years of about $800,000 between the town and the school. And that would be in addition to the additional increase the first year. And that's cumulative, so each year that 54-46 split on the 800,000 would be in addition to the previous year's funding. That gets you out 4 years, and then there's contingency in the stabilization of about $800,000, which may be needed the second and third year portion. A portion of that just to fund the additional free cash that is going to the school department this year. It's still very tight, the $3 million. $5 million gives you much more flexibility. There's different ways you could do it with the $5 million. You wouldn't need to do the full $5 million up front. You could do $3 million or $2 million the first year, and then $1.5 million or $1 million the following years. That gives you much more flexibility going forward, but it's a great increase to the levy as well.
So we did, one of the things that we talked about with, I think Karen Rouse did kind of the math for us, that if you appropriate the million, the incremental $1 million to the school department now, they still have a structural deficit going on because we've already in the base budget used about $500,000 of free cash to fund the base budget, and there's another about $300,000 to come to to get them level service, right? So to get them to the level service where we are now, it cried $500 from free cash and another like $300 just to get level, right? So that was $800 they needed to get level. So these new positions that they're asking for are 1.1. So if you take the 1.1 and the $800 that they needed to get level, you've now consumed most of your $3 million override. So that's why we started talking about, do we really need 5 instead of 3? Is kind of where it went.
Well, but the superintendent also stated that by implementing these positions, it will reduce the need for further funds in the future. So will they really be needing that much more if they're going to be saving that money? They said $90,000 just on buying a van that we can use to transport students with particular special needs here. So there's a $90,000 savings there. A grant writer that full-time is probably going to get them more than the $500,000 that they're getting right now in grant. So that may get them additional funding. The special ed teachers will save them having sending kids out of district, and also will make them money by having other schools, districts, sending children to our district, which they pay more for. So there's a lot of ways that even if we go with the $3 million override, they still, if they're able to hire the people they need to hire, they may not need quite as much as what they're asking for. And I mean, going by what they're telling us, is that these positions are gonna save them money in the future.
Right, but you have to remember that they're coming in with an $800,000 hole, right? They're
Yes.
starting with an $800,000 hole.
Yep, I get that.
But I think that, I mean, the positions that they're proposing seem exactly like you said, it seemed like they were offset, right? They'll
Those would
still save-
offset a lot of the current special needs costs that are burying us, you know. And again, this is not a new concept. We tried this before and it actually worked really well for the school department. But unfortunately, those people are no longer working for us. So these positions can, when you have particular special needs positions, and another district doesn't have it, they, those districts have no choice but to send people to you. And, or at least you're not sending your kids out of district to get these, particular types of teachers. So, I
So-
mean,
So really the question before us tonight is, what's the number that we should put for the community schools, and should we add anything on the town side for Article 6? Dick, did you want to add?
Yeah, in reading the, this, I'll call it the Citizens Report on Fiscal Stability that Al Lees led, and came in here one night to talk about it. A good piece of work, by the way. But anyway, it talked about, for a $3 million override, the cost of the taxpayer would be $330 a year or something like that, for the average home. And I think the average home was cited as $400,000 of value. Obviously, this is 60-some% higher, so that makes the cost for the average homeowner, or the homeowner with the average value home in Westport, between $500 and $550. One of the reasons why we were interested in the $3 million was because we thought that would have a better chance of passing. We're mindful of people's budgets. We don't take that lightly. But even before we got to the school issue here, it was clear that the $3 million was not a long-term solution to our problems in Westport. And we certainly don't want to come back to the voters in the near future asking, again, even if successful. So that's sort of the dilemma. The question is that difference in annual cost, additional cost to the tax bill, significant to make the $5 million idea unworkable? And we go into this with the thought of we want it to pass. And we don't want to make it so expensive that it will not pass. But the counter argument to that is, without the school and their issues, the $3 million was never really going to solve our problem. That's the reality of it. It would give us a little breathing room, but the long-term problem of structural deficit, so-called, in Westport would still exist, and that $3 million wouldn't go very far. So I don't have the magic answer here. It's a dilemma. It really is a dilemma. But that's kind of what has to be put out there for discussion, because if the $5 million is just too expensive and the voters won't go for it, then we've accomplished nothing, and we're back to our problems and we have to go back to the drawing board. So that's what drove this. It was a combination of things. It's not all the schools. It's a combination of things and a realization that $3 million in our present circumstances is just not enough to do what we need to do around town in terms of our budget. So I'm not giving anybody the solution here, but that's what I wanted to give you, the reason for why we got to this $5 million discussion, when heretofore we'd been talking only about $3 million. In each case, it's a lot of money. It's a big ask for the taxpayers. But on the other hand, we have to be honest that the $3 million doesn't really solve our problem. $5 million maybe doesn't solve all of our problems, but it goes a little bit further. And that's the dilemma.
So I know, so I had hoped we could make the 3 million work, right? And we laid it out, 1 million increase, and we had the amount, 405 for the school, 345 for the town, 250 for stabilization. Like, we could do that, we can go forward that way. But it's quite clear to me that that doesn't solve the deficit that we already know about. And that we already know there's an $850,000 deficit in the school department, even if you don't add these other departments, right? So I don't see how you can pass an override that doesn't at least have the $850,000 not in this year, because we've already budgeted, we've got that in the base budget, but you have to solve that problem. So I think that, like, I have changed my mind, actually. I believe we should appropriate more than the 1 million. I believe we should appropriate 1.1 for the school, 345 for the town, and 250 for stabilization. But I'm one person. I think we should talk, we have a little bit more time to talk about what the ultimate number of the override request is. This is just the appropriation for the first year. But I do think that people that want to know, is it 3 or 5, right? And I think 3 is just not workable. I think we will ask for 3, and then we will still be cutting positions next year, and people will say, why did I pass an override if you're cutting all these positions next year? So I don't know that that's an easier sell either. But I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. Go ahead, Betty.
I don't have a lot to add to it, what you're saying, but the issue that really before us right now is what you're going to put into Article 6. And you've got budgets from both departments, the town and the schools. You know that the 1 million is not going to work in the first year, so you could be talking about 3 million, the tax levy of 3 million, but then not appropriate up to 3 million, appropriate what you need in the first year, what you promised you're going to do at town meeting, which looks like it's about 1.4 million that you need to have and use, plus you want to put things into the stabilization fund. I'm wondering from the school side, there are things are changing now with the new school. I think that they're finding that students are returning to the schools. And if you look at the data, one of the big issues for the town and the schools has been the cost of sending students out. It's been very large, and it went up from about 2018, particularly it is over $500,000 just for the school choice. That may be changing, and I don't know how the schools are seeing it, but I think, to me, it looks like that may be a source of funds in the sense you won't have to expend them. Plus, from what I understand, the governor's budget or the budget will increase the amount of special ed reimbursement. And remember that reimbursement comes the next year. There are issues that the school, that are not under the control of the school. But I think that the school should be weighing in right now on the question of 5 million. If that's what you want them to do, or what do they think is going to happen in the next 3 years? We could do the 3 million, make it work if we possibly can, and then come back for another override. That's a real honest way to do it. And you don't have to appropriate so much in the first year, so the taxes won't go up so much. And remember, you're going to have the taxes, they're not going to be necessarily, people are going to be taxed according to what their property was revalued at. They may be lower, maybe more, we're not sure. So it's an unsure situation in an unsure economy. Why don't you just try the 3 million, see what happens this coming year, and see what the schools think about their future. I hear there's incoming 9th grade is very large, and so there is that possibility. But I'd like to see some thoughts on it from the schools. I do support the 1.1 million and the 345 or 4 million for the town. I think it's very important. We're talking about schools, we're talking about education and services. People seem to be thinking the town is making all this money. Well, the town is not making the money. The money is going to services. We've got to understand that. We take them for granted. You know, we want the fire truck to be there when there's a fire. So we have to pay for it.
One thing you didn't mention in your list is there's been a favorable change in the funding formula, favorable to the towns anyway, in the funding formula for schools. So that led to a little bit of a bump, and I think you're exactly right. More students, you don't have to then pay the school choice for them to leave, and also you'll get more in the formula, right? So we have Tony Veras, who's a
Good
school
evening.
committee member.
Good evening, Tony Veras. So thank you for all those kind words, and Brian, you were also correct in many of your comments about, there are things that the school, the district can do to save us money in the long term, vans, staff that could service some of our special needs kids. Maybe as early as 5 years ago, the state average special education budgets were about 17%. Today, they're 25% of our budget is special ed. And the state is telling us that it should be even higher. You know, the mandates, just the way the world is today. So, and those numbers are extremely difficult for us to grab, you know, put our heads around and to control, because much of it is out of our control. So we're always working on mediating that, you know, that problem, the dollar problem with that. Staff, new programs. I mean, if you ask, you know, any school district, hey, could you use more money? I mean, we could certainly use more money to find ways to bring in more staff, programming, technology. I mean, there are certainly things we could do. Does the override, does the 3 million help? It certainly helps. Is it enough? Maybe not. I think if you're going to ask the town's people for a $3 million override, I think you need to spend it. I don't know how much. I personally like the idea of asking for it, not necessarily, maybe, you know, I mean, I get it, we need to put it into stabilization, but I think if you're gonna ask for it, I think you have to show how you're gonna spend the money. So I would like to, if we're gonna go for 3, then I would wanna see it all appropriated that first year. I think that's just my opinion, but anyway, so there are many things the schools are constantly trying to do. As you all know, we're always on a shoestring budget, and every year we're shuffling people around trying to make things work. And our numbers are going up, and a lot of that is the new school, new programming, teachers, and all that stuff will help keep kids in the district, which again saves the town money in the long haul. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so what number do we want? I will move that we change the line item for Westport Community Schools to $1,100,000.
I'll second that. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I don't, because it's my wife's.
Is there any discussion? So you're going to abstain from this. Is there discussion about, I think we also need to talk about stabilization and other ones. I'm just talking about the school department line item.
I have a question on it, Madam Chair. All right, so we're just dealing with that particular piece at the moment. So that does not get into the override amount.
Well, do you want to talk about it all together?
Well, I don't know. I could probably go either way in terms of how it's being discussed, but maybe a better question is, if this motion is successful, then does that preordain a larger override amount? Or can we do that with the 3 million?
Well, so all I'm proposing right now is we change the 405,000 to 1,100,000, which would then bring the total up to 1.6 million, or I can't do math in my head anymore, but somewhere around 1.6 million total on that article. And then we could talk about, is that really what we want to support, or do we want more or less in stabilization? Do we want to add anything else from the town? But I think, I mean, we saw from Jim, we can make 3 million work in Jim's formula if we also put the remainder, the, 1.5 or whatever's gonna be left in the stabilization fund, so that way you can take it out in the next year. So Jim's little way to make 3 million work was to appropriate all of it, but put a really large chunk in stabilization. Now, a lot of people are saying, like Mr. Vivero said, I know we've heard some comments from some other people, that it's really hard sell to say, hey, we need $3 million, but we're gonna put half of it in the savings accounts. That's kind of a hard sell. It's kind of hard to explain, we can say, hey, we're gonna appropriate 1.6 million. We're still gonna propose a $3 million override and deal with it at some other time.
Okay, well, that answers the question then. This present motion does work with the $3 million.
It would work with the
Yeah.
$3 million, yes.
We just clarify people home, you're changing the, what you call it, the proposed override, but the contingency.
The
budget,
contingent on
not
an
a regular
override,
budget.
not
This
the
is
regular
to
budget.
follow.
This is the contingent on the override budget, Article 6,
Yeah.
where our draft has the Westport Community Schools $405,000. My motion is amending that number
From
to
1.1 million.
$1,100,000.
And then stabilization will
We have
drop to 1.5.
Well, we haven't talked about stabilization, so do you want to talk about stabilization at the same time?
I like to see things balanced. It wasn't balanced, so it wasn't going to work for me.
Right, sorry, so that would
So if
be,
you took 1 point, then something has to give. Either you're taking from the 100,000 from the town, or you're taking 100,000 from the stabilization line.
Yeah.
but remember, we don't have to, right now, our
Or
stabilization
you
number is
can-
250,000.
Right, so you could do less on the
So
stabilization.
Jim's proposal here is, we could just appropriate 250,000 to stabilization. We don't have to appropriate all this, but it doesn't help us with our long-term planning if, if we don't put that in stabilization. But we don't have to. We could not appropriate, we could appropriate whatever that number comes out to, 1.5, 1.6,
1.5.
1.5 million, we could just appropriate that.
That's fine.
All right, so the first motion that's on the table is adjusting the Westport Community Schools line item. So let's vote on that one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so that's
Abstaining,
unanimous.
Jim.
So we have 4 yes and 1 abstention. So then the second question is, does anybody want to make a change to the stabilization account number, which is currently 250,000? Betty, do you have a comment? Mhm.
Could you discuss a moment the stabilization fund? My understanding, the purpose of that is to keep bond ratings good and interest low. Are you planning to borrow anything in the next 2-3 years, long-term? Is this something that we think of long-term or short-term? And to take money out of the stabilization fund has to have a 2/3 vote.
Yes.
It gets tougher if you put it into that. I've heard that Somerset used free cash, $15 million, to build a library. They didn't put it into stabilization, but they had it in free cash, which they didn't use. I've heard this a lot, that it's very important to have a solid stabilization fund. But I'm wondering, when you balance things out, and if you're trying to get out there so you can have a grant writer who can bring in more money, and you have better technology so that you can give people better services, how do you balance that out? Or is it just that I'm an economist, so I know that stabilization funds play an important role in some cases, but there's also, and I may get shot for saying this, is that sometimes you have to balance it out. So that's all I can say.
So on the stabilization account, so as you know, so the stabilization account, we've underfunded our stabilization account. The Department of Revenue suggests that you have percentage of stabilization. We don't have anywhere near that. It does help with your bonding rating, but we also don't have a fully funded stabilization rate now, and we're pretty favorable on the bond rating, right? So you asked if there is any upcoming borrowing. I say that yeah, we have to do something. There's a proposal out there to renovate the old high school building into municipal offices. There are needs for repairs to these buildings if we don't approach that. So I do see bonding coming up. But like I said, I think it's probably important, but we got a pretty favorable bond rating without having the stabilization fund. So I'm not sure how critical that is actually to bonding. And I think it's a hard sell to say we desperately need this money, let's put it in the savings account. I just think that's a hard sell.
Well, I mean, when you explain that, it's gonna be put in for future years to pull back out, and I think people understand that. So we're gonna use some of this now, but we're gonna put some away so that when we get to the point where we need to supplement our budget in the future, this is where we have the money, we will have the money there for that. And you can't forget also compound interest. If you're increasing the budget by this percentage this year, okay, that increases more each year after that because of compound interest. So we are essentially, you know, allowing a larger tax levy each year just by doing this 1 year. You know, so there will be a compounded increase in what will be collected every year on top of this. So, and I'm not sure if that's budgeted in these numbers also, Jim. I don't know. I don't claim to be a financial forecaster in any way, shape, or form. I just understand how it works, and I'm sure that was probably factored into this. I just, you know, again, asking for 3, asking for 5. Either way, it's going to be a very, very hard sell because you're going to have to ask the taxpayers to pay more. My counter to that is that one of the few instances in this life where you can make a direct impact, where direct democracy actually works, where your dollars will be spent right here. They're not going to the state, they're not going to the Fed, they're not going anywhere but right here. You can invest in your own town, and your town will get better. Or you can refuse to, and as you've seen over the last 10 to 15 years, we've had to do a fire station, a police station, a library, a school, and now probably town offices. And that's because for 50 years, we didn't do anything. We kept saying no for 50 years. And now we're stuck paying the bill. Because for 50 years, we said, no, we don't want to pay for that. And so I would strongly urge that anyone out there that's watching this understand that this investment, $300 to $500 something dollars per year, will directly impact your children, your grandparents, your elders, everyone across the board. The transfer station, the cemetery, the fire department, the police department, town services, everything that is vital that you expect this town to provide you with, they'll be able to provide you with. But without it, services are going to get cut, things are going to get, there's going to be office closings certain days of the week, you're not going to be able to do business. There's all kinds of repercussions to not investing in your own town. We currently have, I think, the 22nd lowest tax rate out of 351 municipalities in Massachusetts. This would probably bump us up to about 25th or 26th. Okay? So out of 351 towns, you will have still lowest 10%, less than 10% of all towns in Massachusetts. You'll still have an incredibly low tax rate. And I understand not everybody has an extra $300 to $500 a year to put towards this. We're also going to be increasing the amount of exemptions we allow for people over 65 and low-income people and whatnot. So, you know, it's a hard sell all the way around. But my one thing is that at least if you do pass this, you know that those dollars are spent here on services for you, your family, and your fellow Westport residents. That's where it's going to get spent. It's nobody else is taking a piece of this. It's all gets spent here on you.
Wouldn't that stabilization number have to change if the diamond question doesn't pass?
This is actually where I am right now, is that I think we can make this work with a $3 million override, even if we don't put the 1.5 in stabilization. I think we could probably eke through and make it work with the increase in state. If we get an increase in state aid, we get a decrease in the assessments. But if that diamond vote does not pass and we have to find another $450,000 hole, then $3 million is not enough. Like it just won't, because it would be another $450,000 hole every year. So I think right now I'm leaning towards, let's keep with the $3 million override. Up to you guys whether you want to increase stabilization, because I'm really on the fence of that. I'm kind of leaning towards just leave it at 250, but I appreciate the work that Jim is doing to try to convince us we need more. But if that diamond vote doesn't pass, then we have to
I'd say we have to
revisit the
decide
amount on
next
the override.
meeting after the election with the question.
Yep.
So I mean, I think the stabilization, so I guess the question for Boris today, does anybody want to change the number that's going to be printed on the warrant for stabilization? Somebody could change it at the floor of town meeting if we don't want to change it now, but what do we want to put, is 250 what we want on the printed warrant?
Can I ask a quick question about, I think I'm confused with fiscal year 25. Shouldn't there be money again going into stabilization? And
Yeah, there would be more in stabilization.
you just don't have
put
that there, right? Because you don't make 3 million with those two numbers, so, and we've already levied to 3 million. So you are putting money in stabilization in 25 too, right? Or am I wrong?
I think so. Jim, you are, right?
Yeah, 900,000.
I think you just didn't. He threw this together really fast.
No, I'm not.
No, you
I'm
might
just,
be right, I'm just.
I'm just trying to figure out exactly, because I was thinking we could,
Yes,
we
you
don't
are
have, we
correct.
can lower that stable, like, it doesn't have to be 1.5 in stabilization or nothing in stabilization. We can play games with that
It's
one.
800,000.
It's 800, it is 800,000, nice catch.
So you've,
That's one thing I can't.
800 in which, in
In
FY '24
year
or FY
25?
Yeah,
'25?
25.
In 25, it's
And then
800.
nothing in 26.
And then nothing in 26, and then you're taking
Pull
out
out
of
in
the.
27.
yeah.
Yeah. So then. we would
But
be
that would
able to
assume that
draw-
you've put, yeah, so then you would have some in there, so.
So you'd have 2.4 million from which to draw from, should you need it in 26, 27, 28.
If you kept the stabilization, if you move the stabilization to 1,500, right
Yes.
now the stabilization is 250.
Yes, well, no, if you want 1.5 million and 800,000.
Yeah.
So-
Yes, I'm sorry.
so we wait and see what the diamond says next week, and that'll give us some idea, and then I personally, if we could do it, would like to see less in the stabilization, a little more on the town side as well, for the first
So
year.
do you want to add anything?
But not necessarily nothing in stabilization.
But do you want to add, so this is the other thing, so the moderator is usually pretty flexible about changing a line item that's already on the warrant, is a little less flexible about changing line items that aren't on the warrant. So if we want to add in any town side ones, we could do that tonight too. Like I said, Jim had a list of potential ones. Like if we want to add another fire and another police officer, we could do that.
That's personally what I would like to see. I think we have a better chance of the override passing if it's an even across the entire town amount of money, and keeping that percentage as close to the 54-46 as we can and move forward that way. I think that, I just think that as taxpayers go, you tend to lose some when some people feel like the money's
Frivolous.
going in a certain direction. They don't see.
Going to the schools, you can say it out loud.
I'm just saying.
So
We lose votes when it's not even.
right, so I don't think we're gonna get it even, but
No.
we have, like,
But-
are there any of these you wanna add, or something that you want, we have to change a specific thing. The easiest one for me is to add a second police officer and add a second firefighter. That
Yeah,
would be the two
I like
that I
that.
would think are easier.
Absolutely.
There's no interest in spreading it out more. You need the 3 the first year. That's gonna be a tough sell.
The what?
You need the 3 the first year. Originally, we were talking about a
Well,
million.
it depends how much we put in stabilization. So whether you need the 3 the
Right.
first year depends on how much you're putting in stabilization.
I agree with Betty on that one. That we shouldn't inflate it too much over 3, in my opinion.
But so if we keep it at, we can keep it at 3 million for the override.
Yep,
We've already changed the school number to 1.1.
yep.
So the question is, do you want to add a line item in any of these for the town side? Is question one, and question two is, do you want to change the number of stabilization?
You know, how much would you have to add for the
75
1,500?
plus 65.
So another police
So
officer.
75 plus 66.
141,000.
Right, so we could, okay,
And then pull
so,
that out of stabilization.
So it'd be
so I'm
541.
hearing a motion to make the police department appropriation 150,000, the fire department appropriation 132, is that what we would need, Jim?
Fire department would be 122, 132, yes, 132.
I did math in my head correctly
That was
that
very
time.
good.
132, so that adds another police officer and another member of the fire department to what we've already got.
Who's paying for the SRO? The
That's
That's on
town?
the town side.
So that'll be part of yours.
The police department appropriation that we have in there right now is for an extra school resource officer.
And in the technology part, does that include systems for the town hall?
It does, it's general, so it's,
Like utilizing the fiber optic better and better communications, easier permitting? Will that all come out of that?
yes, and a slow process, that's the intent, yes.
That's the intent.
We want to update the system, I'd like to update the website, I'd like to get the permitting for the beaches online, and, you know, there are a number of things that we could do.
And the school's looking at a grant writer. What about the town? Can they borrow the school's
That's on his
grant writer?
list. Well, that's on his list
You're not
actually as a
wrong.
grant writer. That actually probably a good one to add. And if you're trying to get more up to parity, the grant writer might be another one to add in. The other ones I'm kind of worried about because we haven't really talked about them, right? Like an assistant town administrator,
Yeah.
DPW changes. We haven't really talked about any of those. Police and fire, we talk about like every year that we don't have enough.
Right. Agreed. Agreed.
Do you want to add in grant writer?
Sure.
All right,
Let's do
so
it.
that's 85 for the grant writer. Is there anybody, okay, so for the town department, so we're increasing police, increasing the fire, adding a grant writer. Is there any others that we want to add in there for the town departments before we talk about stabilization? All right, do we have a motion for all three of those? Who made the motion?
I think we were waiting for the total first to see if we
Yeah.
could figure it out.
My total was wrong, because I was pulling the police department salary was 75,000, but it's actually 85. So
Well, it
the
says
number
85
we
on-
came up, on this, it says 85, and on here, it's a school resource officer, 75. So I pulled my 75 from the wrong
Okay,
place.
so it should be 85.
So it's 85 plus, where's the fire? Oh,
65.
plus 135 for the fire. Why is that higher? Oh, that's
That's
two.
two.
That's two. I didn't have.
62.
Well,
50.
because, but we already had 60.
We had one over
We
here.
already had 66, so we want to add another one at
So
another
Right.
66,
That's what
right?
I got
Those
that
two.
number, so
So it's 85 for the
5
police
plus
officer,
66,
66 for the
plus
firefighter,
85 for the grant writer.
85 for the
85.
grant.
Does the chief want it written in as a SRO or a police officer?
So we're just going to a salary.
We're adding
235.
another one.
So it'd
on
be
top of the
232.5 a total.
All right, so that ups the town side to whatever that math works out.
232.5, I think.
That-
632.5.
Okay, so that's an additional
232.5, he says.
232.
1.1.
Jim can
And
check
then the
on
rest
that.
is stabilization.
All right, well, okay, so let's start, okay, so that's 232, but then do you want to appropriate all the way up to 3 million on stabilization? So that's the other question.
I think the stabilization is needed for the longevity of the override, right? I mean, isn't that what we've been selling it as, is that we need it for the longevity of the override?
I think it's easier to take a number down lower on the town meeting floor than it is to make it higher.
Steve, well,
So,
there you go high, there you go lower usually.
yeah, so my thought would be for the warrant to make it the higher amount, to whatever, what is it?
that. Look at
232.5 for the
A little
town.
human calculator.
So my thought,
All day long, I'm a carpenter, that's all we do is add and
my-
subtract, divide by 2 and 4 and 6.
all right, so we're gonna, so if I
That's all
get,
I
I
do.
just want to make sure I get this straight. So we're on the Article 6, we are gonna have a total of $3 million.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have the police fire grant writer, we're gonna get added, the school, we already changed to 1.1. The rest of it, we're gonna put in stabilization. And then we can continue to have further conversations in our meetings and at town meeting floor about whether we should not appropriate all that stabilization, whether, you know, whether people want to do that or not. So that would be the voters would get to decide if you want to do that or not.
That makes sense.
Okay, so is everybody good with that? Do we have a motion to approve those changes?
I moved the change on the
All right, so you're
town
amending
budget
it
side to 632.5
Second.
and the appropriate, and then to appropriate all the way to 3
and
million.
appropriate all
On
the
the
way to
article.
3 million.
Okay, and you're seconding that?
Second.
Did you get that, Jim?
I did.
All right, is there any further discussion?
Just one question. So this, once again, this is with the $3 million override.
We're,
Yes.
right,
Not
this is
going to
an
5.
appropriation for $3 million and a contingent on an override, and I think we're still gonna make the $3 million override work.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
where I am.
Yep. So do I think.
It doesn't prevent you from doing,
We can change it, because we have not set the vote, the ballot vote for the override amount yet, so if something changes with the diamond vote, or something changes in discussion at town meeting when we're talking about all
Right,
this,
right.
Then we can lower
then
this.
we can change it, but I think we're gonna really
And
need
you
input
have to have a
at
special town meeting
Yep.
anyway to, I mean, a special town election in order
We have
to
to
do
have-
the override anyway,
Yeah.
so you'll have time if you
But
have to adjust the number along the way.
I think this is the best we can put forward, this is what we're recommending, and then let's have the town meeting talk about it. All right,
Finish it out on time.
all in favor of this amendments to Article 3? Aye, so that's unanimous. Okay, anything else on the warrant?
I believe that's it.
No.
Okay, and then, do you have to have a special town meeting to, I mean, it's not a town meeting, do we need a meeting to approve the warrant?
I think we've approved it tonight,
We
but I'll
approved it
verify.
Through that.
Yeah, well,
I will check, because we would need a special meeting, because it's 14 days prior, which brings us, we'd have to approve it next week. I believe approving it tonight, we're there.
all right,
I
so
will
then.
confirm that.
So then, I'll entertain a motion to approve the warrant as modified by the discussions that we had earlier.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. So you can approve as we discussed. And if we need to have another special meeting or something.
You gotta have Brian sign it before next week. You voted on it, you gotta sign it before it goes.
Well,
He's gonna
Um,
run away.
Catch me if you can.
Run away.
the people, it actually would be good to sign it
Yeah,
before. Well, we just voted on it. We all voted
I
on it,
will
right?
sign it. I'm not,
Okay.
don't shy away from decisions.
The diamond, we have a discussion item on the diamond ballot question. So this is just our April 11, question 1. We have already agreed to pay for diamond $450,000 a year. Question 1 says, yes, we can use excluded debt for that. No means it has to come out of the operating budget. That's the question. There's only one question. Yes means we will fund through debt exclusion. No means we have to fund it from the operating budget. Is there anything, I know you're really big on this one. so
Yeah, just to add that, if you go to the town website with the meeting, video, we have Mr. Rainey LaChapelle of Ralco, who's a Diamond graduate. He had an interview with Irene Buck. It's very, very thoughtful. Rainey does a good job of explaining what it's all about, the costs, what happens if this doesn't pass, and so on and so forth. So it's well worth it. And we did get from him, well, we got it from Diamond with the help of Rainey, the signs that you see around town. They had to be altered a little bit by yours truly, but I think they got the message out, vote yes on Diamond. So it's next week, so there we go.
All right, anything else on diamond?
I just want to say, I have, that I can think of right now, 9 family members that are Diamond grads. Not one of them has a dime of student debt. All of them own their own houses. All of them do very well for themselves. I myself am a tradesperson. I got a college degree. I have $20,000 in debt from that college degree, and I make my living as a tradesperson. And I make more than I ever could have made commuting back and forth to Boston, working in a lab. And so we have a critical shortage of tradespeople. Once again, if you want to invest in your own town, in your own future. My partner has 2 sons, and both of them are going to Diamond right now. My son graduated from the Diamond welding program at night, and he is making an amazing living and is his own boss. He's an entrepreneur. At 22 years old, he is his own contract welding company and has been doing amazingly well. He's actually teaching welders in a shop in Plymouth right now, okay, because he learned from Diamond. And Diamond, I don't know if everyone else is aware of this, but any welding shop, any fabrication shop, any mechanical shop, any carpentry outfit, any pipe fitter or HVAC person, anywhere within a 100-mile radius of Diamond Vocational High School, when they see that you went to Diamond, they hire you on the spot because they know you went to the best school you could possibly go for that particular trade, and you are going to be a good worker, because that's what Diamond produces. I know guys that will only hire people that come out of Diamond's programs because they can't find good workers anywhere else. This is desperately needed. This is, again, a place where your dollars will make a direct impact right here, where you need it most. So I can't stress enough to you to support the trades and support this, and please don't force the town to take this out of its budget, its operating budget, in order to pay for this, because this is desperately needed by the community.
Thank you. Anything else on Diamond? All right, the next one was the Prop 2.5 override discussion. I feel like we already talked about that. Anybody have anything else they want to talk about?
I think we
All
have.
right. We had budget update. Is there any updates on the budget going on?
Nope, we've done that, been there, done that, we're all set.
The change really was the $25,000 transfer that we're going to ask for, so that we can fund that school resource, or police detail.
Yes, yes.
But you have money within the budget, we just need a transfer for. All right, town administrator report.
So Carly Nicholson, a local 8th grade student from DECA Connections Academy, she set up a donation box at the Town Hall Annex and the Council on Aging for pet supplies, toys, leashes, food, I guess. These donations can be dropped off at the Town Hall Annex outside the Animal Controls Officer or at the Council on Aging. Route 177 roundabout.
You need this, yes. Oh, he's got one, it's right there.
You got it. It just fell.
Trying to help you get the word out.
Yeah, thanks. So the Route 177 roundabout, Palmer Engineering participated in the design resolution meeting with Mass DOT to finalize the design requirements. That was 2 weeks ago. They were given the green light to move ahead with the 25% design. These things take years to design. It's like a 3 to 6 year process for the design and another 1 to 3 years to get the funding to construct it. The engineer anticipates the design public hearing to take place later this summer. And this will put the project on schedule for 100% designs at the end of spring or summer of 2024.
Not 2004.
Not 2004. Drift Road, Kirby Brook. Power Engineering is working under the direction of Mass DOT on the Kirby Brook Bridge design. They've done some preliminary work. They're going to do some boring tests out there in the next week or two. They've done some survey work, wetland delineation, some of the existing conditions work for that bridge repair. We have money through a grant for the design through Mass DOT. We do not have money yet for construction, but we're hoping that follows up with Mass DOT.
Jim, on that one, have you been engaging with the neighbors?
The neighbors have been very involved, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Town Hall HVAC project. We recently, we put notice in the state bid list for qualifications for comprehensive energy management services contract, and we added all the municipal buildings. Our energy consultant, Kathy Stanley, who's outstanding, suggested that we include the schools as well as the other town buildings in case they apply for grants. This part of the process would already be done. It's a prerequisite for the Green Communities Grant, which is the grant program that will be funding the HVAC changes or upgrades in this building. There was quite a bit of interest, too, in the pre-bid conference. Supplemental 2023 budget bill, the Governor Maura Healey signed the supplemental budget last week. It includes extensions of the pandemic-related authorizations for public meetings and outdoor dining. The new law also extends authorizations that were set to expire March 31st and April 1st, thereby allowing remote and hybrid meeting options for public bodies through March 31st, 2025. It also extended the expedited outdoor dining permit process and allowing restaurants to offer to-go cocktails through April 1st, 2024. That's it.
Those are big.
Yes.
Anything else for Jim? Okay, we have minutes for March 6th and, yep.
Sorry to bother you again, but the CPC projects, the Community Preservation Act projects at town meeting are mostly town-related, and I'm hoping that you all look at those carefully and be ready to defend them if you are asked a question about them. We are fortunate to have historic buildings, and therefore you can use the CPA funds for that, but we have a large CPA ask this year, so please help us out. Thank you.
Yeah, you have some great projects on there.
I will move the minutes of March 6, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion?
Pick one, Jim.
All in favor? Aye, that's unanimous. And then someone else has to move March 20,
I
right?
wasn't there.
I'll move the minutes of March 20th, 2023.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
And I'm abstaining from the March 20th meeting.
4 ayes with 1 abstention.
Dick moved it, I seconded.
I wasn't here on March 20th.
Shouldn't Dick be taking the minutes for this meeting? Got that, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay. Report on the bill warrant?
I signed it.
That's
There
good.
you go.
Yeah, it was good.
Selectmen liaison committee reports and suggestion for future agenda discussion. Let's start with Dick.
Nothing of late. There will be a meeting of the audit committee in the near future to discuss the audit findings, which are largely good, and some carryover items from the previous one. And we will ask you to approve Tony Roselli appearing either in person or by video
Was this me?
for that at a later date. The only other thing I have is really sort of future agenda. We didn't have an ARPA meeting. We might want to schedule that on, as Jim did that. Normally did it on the 3rd or 4th Wednesday of the month. So Jim, we're talking about an upcoming ARPA meeting that we should probably schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, that's 8 on phones.
That's all, Madam Chair.
Okay, Steve?
I don't think I talked about it last meeting, but the